you, Mr. President. From the beginning of this phase of the war, since February 24th, we've seen undivided European solidarity with Ukraine. But when it comes to weapon supplies and when it comes to the future of Ukraine, whether it's within the European Union or maybe especially the time, there is not complete unity. What does this or how does this affect matters on the ground right now?
Thank you. In any case, united Europe is the only possibility for the united Europe, and the united world is the only prerequisite of a strong Ukrainian army on our territory. And this is why we are fighting for this. And I can tell you that our country, Denmark, is helping us on this. I'm grateful for this. And during the second day of work, the Prime Minister was calling us Mette Frederiksen. She was supporting Ukraine, and lots of other people were calling me. And then there were specific steps regarding strengthening our army with weapons, strengthening our economy, financial support. And then there were steps regarding weakening the economy of Russian Federation, the sanction policy. And this is when we need the unity of Europe and the world. It doesn't come easy, but that is what our strength depends on. Slowing down the liberation of our territory from Russian occupation very much depends on this unity. This is why we understand it's not easy. We're doing this, but still a lot of things depend on the personalities of the European leaders. We have seen since the very beginning the different societies of different countries coming together in unity with us, and at the same time some reserved approach of some of the leaders of those countries, and that slowed down our unity because it slowed down the supplies of weapons. And the sanction blow against Russia was also slowed down a bit because of this. So, in other words, if we will stand together and stand strong, we will, of course, prevail in this war, no doubt.
Can I just follow up? Is there anything you wish Denmark would do or would do differently than we already have? Do you see potential for more support than you are experiencing?
You know, I will be very honest. Since I'm the president of the country at war, we can't say that we have all it takes, because have hundreds and dozens of times more of everything in terms of weaponry and equipment. Of course, we need more, but at the same time, I would like to say that Denmark is helping us. I would like to emphasize that one of the first leaders, the Prime Minister, came to the surrounded Ukraine to come and send the message. We have heard it. We know that not all European leaders were visiting, and this is why I'm very grateful. Then there was a military support. Then I had my speech to the Folketing, and the parliamentarian support very much determines the assistance that we are getting. Of course, we would like to get more, but I can't say anything bad about support from Denmark and their government. There's one important factor, though, where Denmark will play a very key role, is the European aspirations for Ukraine, the candidate status for our country in the European Union. And there, I would like very much for Denmark to be as strong, as united with other European countries regarding our membership in the European Union. I know there is skepticism. I know there are various questions regarding this, but this is the moment that I have said many times. So things that look technical in Europe, like candidacy status, because it takes time, also that may look technical matter. In Ukraine, that looks differently. For us, it's one of the factors of the strength of the motivation of our people, the motivation for our army, meaning one of the unity factors against Russian aggression. So I would like very much Denmark to be, not to be reserved, but to assist us with getting this candidate status. That's very important.
Okay, and then the next question is Jakob Illeborg from BT, and before you ask your question, after that it's Michael Bjerre from Jyllands-Posten, so raise your hand, Michael. All right.
Mr. President, more than 10 million Ukrainians are now displaced. More than 5 million of those live in other European countries. What is your message to your many countrymen forced to stay abroad in a country like Denmark? And when should they come back to Ukraine?
If war was to end today, I would address 100% of our countrymen abroad and ask them to come back. But I'm sure that our Ukrainians, they are head over hill with Ukraine, and for them, Ukraine is the best country. I'm very grateful to Denmark for hosting, if the war was to end today, I would ask everyone to come back quickly and restore our country. But the war is not over yet, so we have still dangerous situations in separate parts of our country. So I'm sure that when Ukrainians will come back, they will start relaunching the Ukrainian economy. But before the war ends, I can't ask them to come. What I can say is coming back of every citizen contributes and helps Ukraine. But we are at war now, so this is the choice of every individual Ukrainian. You know only one thing, that we are counting on you. We want you to stay the citizens of Ukraine, and I'm sure this is our mutual willingness. This is what I can say. It's important that no matter where you are, you always remember that you are Ukrainians, and we know that those people for whom this country is their homeland will have to rebuild it.
A follow-up question, Mr. President, on a personal level. Many Ukrainians have given big sacrifices already. What, Mr. President, is your personal biggest sacrifice during the war?
I haven't sacrificed anything for the sake of war, and I don't live for the sake of war. I live for the sake of Ukraine, for the sake of restoring peace. Well, this is not a sacrifice. This is my big willingness. It is my honor to be the president of our country. I love Ukraine. Here, I have everything that I love, what I value, and everything which is native to me. It is here on this land, and sharing this with Russian Federation or their mercenaries is something that I'm for sure will not do.
All right, thank you. Next question from Michael Bjerre, Jyllands-Posten.
Thank you. Mr. President, one of your advisors speculated in a New York Times interview that Western governments are slow-walking military aid in hopes that Russia and Ukraine would agree to a ceasefire, even if it means ceding Ukrainian territory. Do you see it in that way?
Частину запитання я не почув. Один з радників сказав, що?
We can only hear the Ukrainian. We don't have a translation.
Yeah, but he didn't hear the second part.
Oh,
Okay. So we'll repeat the question.
I'll ask again slowly. One of your advisors speculate in a New York Times interview that Western governments are slow-walking military aid in hopes that Russia and Ukraine would agree to a ceasefire, even if it means ceding Ukrainian territory. Do you see it in that way?
Thank you for this question. Honestly speaking, I'm not in the time and in that moment where I could discuss the words that were spoken out by my advisors. What I can say is that assistance with weapons determines the speed of the occupation. There are different ideas why it goes slowly, why the process of transferring weapons have not happened since the very beginning, and I'm not interested in going into these details. I'm grateful for what we're getting, but it has to come quicker if we all live with one goal of having peace, not to have war in Europe, and not to allow the war from Russian Federation to spread to other countries of the European Union and NATO. The fact that they do have such dreams, I'm sure they do. So I don't want to dig into details of why and when and the amounts of weapon supplies and how these agreements were made. And I would like to discuss this after the war is over, after we end this war with our victory.
One follow-up question, Mr. President. It seems like the war is not going that well at the moment in the East. Do you think that Russia will be satisfied with Donbass, or if there's not more speed on delivering of weapons from the West, that the Russian forces will try to go more west and even maybe to return to Kiev?
Вони вже були в Києві.
They have already been to Kyiv. They have seen our welcoming and our hospitality there, in inverted commas. And of course, they have the idea of occupying the whole country. And they demonstrated this in the first weeks of war. This is their objective. I think this is the big problem. This global problem is that this war, without any pathetics, and I'm speaking about specific things, they want to be as influential as they can on the international map, in the geopolitical map of the world. And therefore, Ukraine is one too little for them. In the couple of days, they wanted to take and occupy all of it. They wanted to change the political power in Ukraine to demonstrate to all other countries who are smaller, who used to be part of the Soviet Union, or who were under the influence of the army of the Soviet Union, where the troops were hosted. They wanted to demonstrate what will happen next. They have to take Russian Federation into account. And I'm sure they would have advanced further on. And I'm sure that if Ukraine is not strong enough, they will go further. Kyiv is not the end line of their marathon. of their dream marathon. This is not the finish line. This was a very powerful beginning, but we have shown to them our strengths, and it is important for this strength to be also demonstrated together with us by our Western partners as well.
Thank you. Next question from Emil Rotbøl.
Thank you, Mr. President. You have mentioned several times that you would like to meet personally with President Putin. What would you like to say to him?
I don't have a big desire to meet with President of Russian Federation. I did say many times that, unfortunately, and I have to admit that today only President Putin decides whether the Russian army will stop or not. Because on the territory of Russia, there is only one man who decides everything for his people and for his military. So I think that if Russia would like to end the war, because in the media that's what they're saying, I don't believe them, but for them to show that they really do want this, they have to sit down at their negotiation table. The negotiation table without Ukraine, about Ukraine, is not possible. So these negotiations have to be direct negotiations. We can talk with middlemen, with intermediaries, or without them. For me, it doesn't matter if Russian Federation is prepared to end the war, meaning leaving our territories. At any time, I personally am prepared to participate in this format. But I think that on the daily basis, our society and support in our society for any dialogue is going down and down with every day. No one wants to talk to Russia for one single reason, because they were killing us, they were lying to us, they were occupying us, and therefore there is no trust in them. But no matter how difficult it is, we have to use all options, all opportunities that are out there to put an end to this war.
Thank you. And the Russian propaganda is suggesting that Russia is liberating Russian-minded citizens. Would you be willing to call this bluff by allowing referendums for the local population under international monitoring to decide their own future?
Вам не здається, що виглядає дуже странно?
Don't you think that it seems strange that Russian Federation during 8 years is coming to one territory of Ukraine or the other in a military way with guns at your head, is carrying out some referendums which are not consistent with the international law? We have the constitution, we have the law of Ukraine, which regulates referendum, and there is specific legislation with specific provisions. So don't you think that it looks strange? What if Russian Federation comes to you and will say, we think that someone here is offending 2 or 3 people who were speaking Russian? They have a bad service in the restaurant, or someone looked at them, gave them a bad look in the supermarket. Well, Russian soldiers will say that this will be decided in the court or the dialogue. Well, it has to be decided in a civilized manner. But Russians will say, no, but we think, let's do the referendum. And these people will come on tanks, they will be killing our children. They've killed 300 children already. So that's the format of the civilized referendum, don't you think? that it looks like Nazism or fascism. They are imposing their narrative. They are raping people. They have stolen children. Thousands of people were deported by force. They were deprived of their documents and IDs. 15,000 houses, 15,000 apartments in Kharkov were completely empty. No people. It's in a million citizen city. It's not just a small communities that I don't even mention. They were completely eradicated. That's the kind of referendum. This is the narrative they came up with, that they are allegedly protecting Russian-speaking population. The majority of the cities that they've destroyed completely, where there is no people, no buildings, most of those communities were Russian-speaking, and what have they done to them? So all of these people now, they switch to Ukrainian language because they are shocked that Russian army could have done that to them, just in shock. And that's the referendum they're doing. And why should we be imposed to accept their wishes? Who are they? Let them carry out referendums in their own country. They have, how many years do they need to have one leader? They have things to sort out. They have a huge country, a humongous country in terms of size. So let them sort out their own house. Let them do referendums then let them use weapons on their territory instead.
Thank you. Next question from Amalie Abildgaard from Ritzau.
Thank you. Mr. President, what needs to happen before Ukraine is willing to negotiate an end to the war?
Negotiations with whom?
With Russia.
Готовність Росії до перемовин.
There has to be the preparedness of Russia to negotiate, the preparedness of Russia to deoccupy our territories. I think this is the first step and the most important. They keep saying that they are prepared. At the same time, they're bombarding, they are sending cruise missiles. How can you negotiate under those conditions? How can you do that? I mean, people are not usually behaving like that if they want to have peace and the war. This is how people usually impose their conditions. They're saying, look, if you don't agree to such and such items, we will continue killing you. Well, then it's the question of whether you talk to the terrorists or not. In that format, any normal person will not do negotiations, because these will not be negotiations then. This will be the ultimatum on the Russia side. And we don't need the language of ultimatum. We are free people.
Thank you.
Okay. Next question from Anna Libak, Weekendavisen.
Yes, hello. I would like to return to the question of the Danish government's position on granting EU membership status to Ukraine. You said that you are fully aware that Denmark has raised concern about issuing such a membership status to Ukraine right now, that Ukraine is not ready, even though Turkey, which many Danish politicians consider unfit for EU membership, has already achieved membership status. So does the Danish the Danish attitude surprise you?
Ви знаєте, дві речі.
You know, two things. I think since Ukraine is fighting and the way Ukraine is protecting common goals with the European Union, I think Ukraine has to be, at minimum, the candidate stay to the European Union. We have deserved long time ago. But there are certain sequencing. Although I have my own vision regarding this, I think Ukraine will only strengthen the positions of the European Union, because any union has to have members who are willing to be there. According to the numbers, and this is not our analytics, this is global analytics, our people are more supportive of the European Union than some nations of many countries who are already members of the European Union. 96% support the European Union. We don't need to have referendums on EU accession, because 96% of people are willing to support, and they're prepared for the accession. And we have filled out the questionnaire. There's no any questions to ask regarding the Copenhagen criteria, by the way. And I know Denmark has questions regarding anti-corruption infrastructure, but I think that these questions arise because the society of Denmark is not fully informed about what happened in Ukraine prior to the war and what is happening now. So using this opportunity, I would like to tell you, I think that such a developed anti-corruption infrastructure, which is commissioned and is operational prior to the war and during the war, I don't think this is something that many European countries can boast. Just to give you the example, we have National Anti-Corruption Bureau, National Corruption Prevention Commission. In September, half a year after I became president, we have launched high anti-corruption court. So the full anti-corruption infrastructure was set in place and launched. Of course, we had challenges. There was a decision at a certain point of time of the Constitutional Court, and some anti-corruption bodies were blocked in their operations. But we entered this political war within our country. We unblocked fully this decision of the Constitutional Court. I was dealing with this personally. The society was supporting me on this, and all anti-corruption bodies were put into operation again, and all the mandates were restored. And that's a big chunk of work, and I think the experts understand what it is when you have a constitutional court decision that was already enforced, and what do you do with that. So we have done it. We had the support of partner countries. We worked on that context with the Venice Commission. So we have done that work for 2.5 years, making sure that anti-corruption infrastructure is fully operational. So when someone's talking about law enforcement or other reform in Ukraine, you have to know that lots of things have been done. 2 main laws on judicial reform, and 2 main laws that 30 years could not have been put in place, wouldn't be put in place, were voted by the parliament of Ukraine, and they were enforced. Of course, there is a slow process in terms of selection of justices, because during the war it was difficult for these vetting commissions to operate properly. But out of 100% that we can do, we have done 100%, and we continue doing that. The most important thing that Denmark, the society, and the government should know is everything that we have done for the setting in place the anti-corruption infrastructure and judicial reform. This has to do not because we want to become member of the European Union. We do this for our own sake and for our own benefit, for Ukraine, because we want Ukraine to be contemporary and modern without any bureaucracy. This is why, by the way, we have a digitalization ministry, a brand new ministry, and all partners are saying that such a progress without bureaucracy, without these hurdles of bureaucracy is unprecedented. People are now using digital IDs, digital apps in smartphones. You can pay taxes digitally. Very important things in variety. We are helping our IDPs through this smartphone apps. We're helping business. In 10 minutes, you can register business in Ukraine, and you can also close your business in 10 minutes. And that's during the war. And that is part of the digital reform, which is just an outspoken example. And there are a lot of such examples, and there's more and more with every day. I just simply think that you don't know what's happening here in Ukraine, and it's clear why. So I'm very grateful that because of the journalists, the society can hear about this. This is why I think Ukraine, because of this, have long ago been ready to become the member of the European Union.
Okay, and then I have a follow-up question in another area. It seems that President Biden is hesitant to provide Ukraine with more advanced missiles or artillery systems that can reach hundreds of kilometers into Russia, because it would allow Ukraine to take the war into Russia. You could argue it is a strange thing to fight a war that where one of the parties is not able to respond in kind. They can attack you, you cannot attack them. If the West consented, would you actually hit targets on the side of the Russian border?
No, we are not interested in hitting civilian targets. We are not terrorists to hit civilian blocks. We are civilized people. We need this weapon to liberate our country. Just imagine that in many places where our soldiers are located, and the distance to the Russian troops is more than 100 kilometers, 100, 140. We have a big country in terms of territory. We are the largest country in Europe in terms of territory. So how to shorten this distance? The only answer is that we need adequate weapons. We cannot simply send human resources to this, because for me, it's not a resource. These are living people. This is why I want them to fight, but I want them to come back home. And for that purpose, we can't simply throw people at them. We need the money to shorten that distance, meaning we need weapons that would be hitting targets at that distance. And we're doing this at our land. We were hitting targets on the occupied territories, not on the territory of Russia.
Thank you. Next question, Jakob Grønholdt Petersen from Reuters.
Hello. So tomorrow, NATO defense ministers are meeting in Brussels. I would like to ask what you're hoping they will agree at this meeting. I'm asking because there's reports that Ukraine will soon run out of simple ammunition. Thank you.
I don't know where you have had the reports that we are running out of simple ammunition. This is not true. We have enough weapon, but what we don't have enough is the weapon that really hits the range that we need to reduce the advantage of the Russian Federation equipment. We don't have enough of the armored vehicles, and because we don't have enough armored vehicles, and therefore we're losing people, and that is the biggest problem. Who is this land going to serve if there are no people left? So that's what we are lacking. We are lacking important principal things that we have been looking forward to for a long time and waiting for a long time. You remember, since the beginning of the war, we asked them to close the sky, but unfortunately that didn't happen. We were looking for alternatives all the way through. If you can't close the sky, give us the planes. We didn't get the planes. You can't give us the planes, please give us air defense systems, contemporary systems, and this can be done not only by the United States, but also by the European partners. We are looking forward to this decision very much. We are expecting the Europeans to support us on this because for us, this is a critical fact. 10, 15 cruise missiles are hitting our land on the daily basis, and they're hitting civilian targets, civilian blocks. And that's a big problem. It's not difficult to count that 300 missiles can be used in 30 days, in 1 month. And that's why you understand the amount of people that can die. So if we can't close the sky with the things that we proposed, then therefore we are asking to provide us with air defense systems that will strengthen our defense and reduce the number of hits into civilian targets. So, and I do hope on that support very much.
Okay, a quick follow-up question on the, maybe you could update us on the situation in Severodonetsk and Lysychansk. Now that the Russians have destroyed the last bridge connecting with the other side of Ukraine, is there a risk that Ukrainian troops and civilians will get encircled in that area?
The hostilities are now in Severodonetsk. The situation is indeed very difficult. I'm not prepared to give you details because apart from just us, our enemies are also listening to what I have to say. Our people, our soldiers know how to act in difficult situations if the situation will become worse and more difficult. Speaking about general situation in the east, that's what it looks like. It is indeed very difficult because in the downtowns we have fighting going on in the civil quarters, on the streets, and Russians don't care how many people will be left, how many of their Russian-speaking population will die in that city. So our task, therefore, is to fight back and take back our country, and that's what we're doing.
All right, thank you. Next question, Brian Weikart from Ekstrabladet.
Yes, thank you. We know that Russian soldiers have committed war crimes in Ukraine. What about Ukrainian soldiers? And what are you doing to prevent that from happening? Ukrainian soldiers committing war crimes.
You know, we are an open and democratic country. Of course, I know that our people have not been raping other people and they have not done looting, but things happened during the war. This is why we're very open, not to get any accusations of hiding anything. We have established an open international investigation committee. Apart from investigation committee, we also invited representatives of the prosecutors' offices of other countries. And by the way, I know that law enforcement and criminal investigators from Denmark also supported this proposal regarding helping Ukraine in this. So we are open. People are coming from other countries into these united investigative committees for no one to think that we are hiding anything. So far, we have seen the collective graveyards that this horde of Russian army has left behind. And by the way, on the daily basis, we are finding new ones. There was another one that we discovered in the Kyiv Oblast, the collective graveyard.
As I understand your answer, no Ukrainian soldiers have committed war crimes. Is that correctly understood?
Моя відповідь: у мене немає даних, де ми на своїй землі.
My answer is that I do not have any information about us committing any crimes on our land. I don't know whether you have this information. My answer is that we are open to this. This is why we have joint international investigation committees, because we have nothing to hide. Please. All the guilty have to be held accountable.
Right, thank you. And next question is Morten Butler from Bloomberg.
Yes, hello, Mr. President. The whole world obviously is watching your courageous fight to defend your land. Can you give us some insights to when and what will be the turning point of this war?
Okay. В іншу сторону, я так розумію, ваше питання.
You mean the turning point? You mean that when the turning point will, when the Ukrainian army will be advancing, or when you mean the turning point when the Russia will do that turning point? What's your question?
Well, both actually. What will be the turning point that will decide whether it goes one way or the other?
Якщо не буде пришвидшена зброя, я вважаю,
If we don't have fast weapon supplies, I think this situation will stagnate. And stagnation means that people will be dying, everyone will just stand, and both sides will be moving 1 or 5 kilometers forward and then 1 or 5 kilometers back. If we do have the increased supplies of weapons that we have asked from our partners, we will start moving forward, I think.
Right. Thank you. Then Christian Ring-Hansen-Holt.
Thank you, Mr. President, for taking questions from us here in Denmark today. I'm representing a talk show with a very close contact to our viewers. So because of your appearance today, we gave our viewers the possibility to ask a question directly to you. And two of them, I brought them with me here. I have pictures of them. It's Mrs. Irina Olsen, an Ukrainian woman living in Denmark. And then it is Mrs. Olga Shvaiko, 35 years old. She fled from Dnipro March this year and is living here today in Denmark. And we gave them the possibility of asking questions to you. So I'm now going to read the question from especially Olga, because she is one of your citizens. It's like this. There is not a single night where my daughter isn't asking me when we can return home. She misses Ukraine and our family back home. One question is tormenting all Ukrainians outside the Ukraine. Is it wise to return home right now? And you can address your answer directly to Olga and Irina, please.
Thank you for your question. I answered this question today already. It's a very complicated question. It's a very personal question, because it means taking a big responsibility regarding the life of these girls, and that's not easy. I think that in Dnipro region, the situation is normal. Of course, there are isolated hits of the cruise missiles, but in general, the situation is normal for a country which is at war. I'd say that it's normal to live when you have cruise missiles flying in, but compared to the east of Ukraine, to the Mykolaiv region, to Kherson, the situation in Dnipro is stable. You can live there and you can work there. I can't say that to these beautiful women that they need to go back now with their with their children, from what I understand, back home. This can be their only personal decision. When and if I know that we have ended this war, then of course I will ask all Ukrainians, including those citizens of Ukraine that are in Denmark, that you're hosting so warmly, and thank you for this. Then I will tell them that we won, do come back. And today this has to be part of their own responsibility. It's the same as if I would say, we're not letting men out of the country of certain age, they have to fight. But children and women have unimpeded mobility. They want to go to another country. This is their decision. But there are girls, there are women who are fighting. There are those who are waiting as nurses. There are those who are working as volunteers. Please understand me. I think that this is their choice. We are grateful to them for this choice, but this is about risk, about the risk of losing life. And those who are working on the front lines, who are serving on the front lines, they are just like men. They are as strong as they are. They are equally heroes like men. There is no difference, but this was their choice to be volunteers, to come and work on the daily basis, on the hourly basis, on the daily basis, or not to come. There are objective reasons, I understand, but please leave this choice to those girls, whether to come or not.
And I have a follow-up question then. What is your message to the average Dane citizen who is actually viewing this program right now? What are you really expecting from a normal tax-paying Dane?
First of all, you are not ordinary people. We highly value what you have done, because any money that was donated by your country is the money of the taxpayers. We understand that the Prime Minister and the government and Folketing decides where this money will go, but it's about you. It's about ordinary taxpayers. And I would like to thank you on behalf of the President, on behalf of the ordinary citizens of Ukraine. We will never forget this. Thank you very much for this support. And I would like you to be sure that Ukraine doesn't forget friends. And this war in history we will always remember all the countries who have not left us alone fighting with the terrorism of the Russian army. And I would like you to be sure in the future of Ukraine, in the real and powerful partner, when we become the member of the European Union, we will only strengthen you. We are the country that will give you a hand during difficult times. And if God forbid there will be challenges for Denmark, you can always count on our assistance. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We know you have other tasks to get to, Mr. President, but we have one final question. That'll be from Søren Astrup from Politiken.
Yes, Mr. President. We've been talking to a critic of yours in Donbass who said that you're giving people false hopes about the possibility of a win, whatever that is. There's a need to ensure that people do not let their guard down, but at the same time make certain that they do not give up. How do you solve that contradiction? Thank you.
People always need to hear truth. And for me, this is the most important. And therefore, with the great respect, I treat the profession of the journalist. And I do differentiate journalists from fake journalists who are reporting lies. And you know how disinformation and Russian disinformation impacts inside the country and in Europe, in the United States. The lobbyism of this such information is big. Lots of money has been spent for this. So I think that we need to talk absolutely openly with people in a very open manner. There are some details about war that we cannot communicate to our people, not because we have something to hide, but because unfortunately such details then are being used by the enemy. This is very cynical because they have no moral values. So because people who understand each other, they simply came to us and were torturing our people. So you have to understand my attitude. And this is why I have no peace because of this. And I'm not sure I will ever have. So it's difficult to balance this properly. But when you don't know how to act, follow the law. If you don't know how to tell people something, tell them the truth. People deserve to know the truth. They deserve to live in the real world, in the reality.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks for answering our questions. I have a long list of reporters who would have liked to have asked the question as well, but maybe we can get back to that some other time. We will try to get the story out, and you should know that our hearts are with you. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your support. Good luck. Slava Ukraine.
Og lige inden I smutter, vil jeg bare lige sige tak til Lucia Elisabeth Keil, som har arrangeret det her for os alle sammen.